If it is decremental sequence, the sequence will start with max value and it will be decrementing by the value specified in the increment by clause, and once it reaches min value, it will stop or recycle based on the cycle. In this case, it is no cycle, no cache. So it will start with 5, it will be decrementing by 1, that is next value is 4, 3, 2, 1. Once it reaches min value, which is 1, it will stop. See, this is SS3, min value 1, max value 5, increment by -1, no cycle, no order, cache is 0, last number is 5. That means the next available value which is generated by the sequence is 5. So SS3.nextval, it is starting with max value because it is decremental sequence. Whether it is incremental or decremental will be decided by the value specified in the increment by clause. If the value in the increment by clause is positive, then it is incremental sequence. If the value in the increment by clause is negative, then it is decremental sequence. If it is incremental sequence, it will start with min value and incrementing towards max value. If it is decremental sequence, it will start with max value and it will be decrementing towards min value. Now in our case, it is decremental sequence because of -1 in the increment by clause. So it will start with max value and it will be decrementing by -1 because the value specified in the increment by clause is -1. So when we generate the next value, it will be 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. After that, it will stop, it will throw error because min value is 1. Sequence goes below min value and cannot be instantiated. It has already reached the min value. Beyond min value, it cannot generate the values because it is decremental sequence and min value is 1. SS4 we are creating. Now in this case, we are using start with clause here. Increment by 1, this is incremental sequence. Start with 101, min value as 1, max value 105, no cycle, no cache. If there is no cycle, it will not restart again. Cache is 0, it will be generating 1 at a time. So when we have the start with clause, when we do not have start with clause in the sequence will start with min value. But when we have the start with clause in the sequence, then start with clause will take priority or precedence over min value. So since we have start with clause in our sequence SS4, the SS4 will start with the value specified in the start with clause but not with the min value. Start with the value in the start with clause will be considered only for the first cycle, not for the subsequent cycles. Except for the first cycle, all the subsequent cycles will be considered to start with the min value only. So second cycle and subsequent cycles, second onwards, always the sequence will be started with min value only. Only for the first cycle, sequence will start with the value mentioned in the start with clause if start with clause is present while creating the sequence. And the start with clause cannot be altered. See, in our earlier case example, we altered increment by min value, max value, cycle, no cache. All these values we have altered. Now first time we are using start with clause. Now we will see whether the start with clause value can be altered or not. It is not possible, we will see practically. Now SS4 is an incremental sequence because 1 is mentioned in the increment by clause. Start with 101, min value 1, max value 105. See, normally when there is no start with, it will start with min value, that is 1. Since start with is there, it will start with 101 now. SS4 dot nextval, it is starting with 101, which is mentioned in the start with clause, because start with clause has the highest priority than min value for the first cycle. Since it is first cycle, it is starting with 101. It will be incrementing by 1, 102, 103, 104, 105. After 105, it will check for the cycle. There is no cycle. It will stop. Sequence exceeds max value. There is no cycle. Next, SS5. The same thing. Cycle is mentioned here. Instead of no cycle, cycle is present. Means it will repeat. First time it will be 101, 2, 3, 4, 5. After 5. Now, since the cycle is there, it has to recycle now. Second cycle should start. But when it is starting the second cycle, it will always start with min value only, not with start with value. That is, it will not start with 101. It will start with 1 only. See, after 105, if we re-execute, it is giving 1. Now we want to alter the sequence. The sequence should start with 101. Cannot alter starting sequence number. This is the meaningful message. So, start with clause cannot be modified, cannot be altered. SS6, increment by 1, min value 1, max value 10, no cycle, cache 10. We have seen default cache which is 20 and no cache. Cache 0 is not allowed, cache 1 is also not allowed. Minimum cache should be 2, greater than 1, which is 2. Now we used cache 10. Sequence is created. SS61 we are creating. Here we specified no cycle. Yes, this is the relation between min value, max value, cycle and cache, all the 4 parameters. Cache is 10, minimum is 1, maximum value is 10, that is difference between 10 and 1 is 1 to 10 is 10 values only. Cache is 10 values, increment by 1. So it will first start with 1, it will be incrementing by 1 and reaches max value. So it can generate 10 values. Because cache is there 10, it will generate 10 values at a time. 10 values are already there here. When we specify no cycle, there is no restriction. It will create. Since a cycle is generated, it has to repeat after that. For a repetition, there is no value here. So, number to cache must be less than 1 cycle. This is the relation between cycle, cache, min value and max value when there is no start with. We will also consider the increment by value here. All the options, increment by, min value, max value, cycle and cache. If the cycle is no cycle, then there is no restriction. If cycle is yes, then there is a relation between all these parameters. The cache must be less than 1 cycle. 1 cycle is 10. So, cache cannot be equal to 10. It should be less than 10. Cache 9, it is allowed. That is the relation between all these parameters. Next, let us see one more example. Cache 11 with no cycle. Yes, even though there are only 10 values, but cycle is not there, 11 is allowed. When cycle is present, 11 is not allowed. Less than 1 cycle. Increment by 0 is not allowed. Increment must be a non-zero integer. It must be an integer. It can be positive integer or it can be negative integer. but it cannot be 0, non-zero integer. So when we say integers, 0 is also included in that, but a non-zero integer must be specified for increment by clause. Negative is allowed, we have used it, but 0 is not allowed. It must be a non-zero integer. 0.1, a decimal number. This specifies it must be an integer. It cannot be a decimal. It cannot be a fractional number. It must be an integer. So decimal numbers are not allowed. Min value, negative. There is no restriction. The increment by value, min value, max value. Min value can be negative. Max value is 0. It will start with -1. Next value will be 0. Yes, it is allowed. S1.Currval from dual. We have generated up to 21 for S1. Now, let us see some exceptional cases. For S1, we have generated the values up to 21. So the next available value in the sequence will be 22. So if you execute Nextval, the next value will be generated as 22. The current value what it has generated is 21. Now let us use Currval, Currval from dual. 2 times we are using in a single statement. There is no difference. Same value we are displaying 2 times. So 21 and 21 will be displayed. Same we are displaying twice. Next, Currval and Nextval. We use in a same statement. The Currval is 21, which is recently generated. Nextval is, next available value will be 22. So 22 will be generated. So our expectation is 21, 22. Right? But both will give same values. The value will be based on the Nextval, 22 and 22, because Currval will always give the most recently generated value. The entire statement will execute at once. It's not like first it will execute Currval and it will execute Nextval later. Both will execute at the same time. When Nextval is generated, the next available value, since the Currval should always give the recently generated value, it will always give the value which is recently generated. Because of Nextval, the value which is generated is 22, so the Currval has to give the value which is generated, that is 22. That is why both are giving the same value, because entire statement will execute at once. Next, another situation, Nextval, Currval. So Nextval 22 is already generated. So in this case, Nextval will give 23. Currval, definitely it will give 23. So here it is meaningful. It is generating and it is displaying. Here it is displaying before generating, but one statement will execute one time only. It's not like first value once, second value once, like that. That is why both will give same value, whether it is Currval, Nextval or Nextval, Currval. Both values will be based on the Nextval only. Next, Nextval, Nextval. So the recently generated value is 23. The sequence has to generate the next available value. It has to display as 24. But now we are using S1.Nextval, S1.Nextval from dual. 2 times we are generating the value. We are using Nextval in one statement. It will not generate 2 values. One statement will execute only once. That is why it will generate only one value, 24. The same 24 value we are displaying multiple times. It's not like 24, 25 or 25, 25 like that. It is 24 only. Even though we mentioned this 2 times. We are displaying the same value as 2 instances. That's all. It will not generate statement up to here once and this once like that. One statement will go for execution only once, and since it is executing only once, it will generate only once. One value it will generate. The same value you are displaying 2 times, that's all. So both will give the same value here. Next, it is something like this: 2 plus 3 comma 2 plus 3 from GL. Both will give 5 and 5. Similar way, we are displaying S1 dot Nextval comma S1 dot Nextval. It will not generate 2 values here. 24 comma 25 it will not give. 25 comma 25 also it will not give. It will give 24 only. Only one value it will generate. The same value we are displaying multiple times, not only 2 times. If we use 10 times also S1 dot Nextval comma S1 dot Nextval like that, it will generate only one value. Now, we want to alter the sequence SS8 increment by 2. Yes, sequence is altered. Min value 6 altered. Max value altered. No cycle altered. Cache altered. No order altered. Order altered. SS13.Nextval sequence does not exist. SS13 we have not created. We have created up to 8 only. 13 is not created. Since it is not available in the database, it is throwing error. Sequence does not exist. Start with cannot be modified, which we have already seen. Now we will see the permissions. Can we grant select on SS1 to other users? Yes. Now U1 can access SS1 sequence and he can generate the values. Can we rename the sequence? Yes. Rename SS11 to SS111. See the message again. It should be sequence renamed, but it is giving as table renamed. Comment on sequence not allowed. Comment on table sequence not allowed. We cannot add comments for these sequences. Now describe DEPT. 3 columns are there. Select star from DEPT. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. 5 records are present in DEPT table. Now let us see how can we use the sequence to generate the values and store the values into primary key column. Here department number will be primary key. We do not have sequential values here 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Here we have 10, 20, 30 like this. See, now insert into DEPT values S1 dot Nextval, some department name, location. Sequence does not exist. S1 is not there. Did we drop them? Maybe we might have dropped it. Sequence does not exist. So we are using SS1. Yes, one row created. Instead of primary key column value, we use sequence name dot Nextval. One row created. If we see this 1 DD4 DD44 means the sequence is starting with 1. We are creating a new table TT1 C1 comma C2. Let us insert data into this table. We are creating a sequence S underscore TT1, min value as 1, increment by 1, no cache, no cycle. There is no max value. We are leaving the max value to the default. So start with 1 and increment by 1. No cycle, no cache. Sequence created. Now we are inserting the values into TT1, which has 2 columns, number and character. First one is number. So we use sequence for the first column C1. Character we give AA. If you see the table, 1 AA is generated. Another record we insert. This is 2 BB, 3 CC. See 1, 2, 3. The values are sequential. Now if you see the Currval, it is 3. We have committed. Commit is completed. Now, let us take one scenario. Select star from TT1, we have 3 records. Now, we are continuously inserting the data into the table. At some point of time, we find that whatever the records we have inserted are wrong. We have to delete them or we want to roll back. When we roll back, what happened to the data which is inserted into the table? And what will happen to the values generated by the sequence? We know that whatever the records we have inserted, when we say roll back, the records whatever we have inserted into the table will be removed if it is not committed. What will happen to the sequence? Will the sequence go back? Let us see. Up to 3 we have inserted and it is committed also. We are inserting next value which is 4, 5. So if you see 4, 5 are inserted newly now. Now we say roll back. Roll back has completed. That means these 2 records will be removed from the table since they are not committed. This we know very well. See, if you select from table, records are removed. What will happen to the sequence? Will the sequence reset automatically to the previous value, that is 4 or not? Let us generate the next value again and see. 4, 5 is generated. It has 2 options now. The sequence will generate the next value which is 6, or it will reset to its back and start from 4. Either it has to generate 4 or 6, only 2 options. If it is resetting, it will generate from 4. If there is no reset, then it will start from 6. 1 row created, 2 rows created. If you see from TT1, it is starting from 6. That means there is no reset. Sequence is not resetting automatically. So there is no reset. So in case of any roll back, the sequence will not be rolled back. Sequence will not be reset to its previous value. We can see some gaps in case of sequence, in case of any rollback in the sequence. See, whenever we perform any rollback during our transactions, the sequences will not be reset to its previous values. So it will start generating from the next value only. Those values which are generated during the rollback of transaction, those values will be missing values or lost values in our table. See, in our table 4 and 5 are not present. So if we want to reset the sequence, it will not be automatic. We have to manually reset the sequence. Now the sequence should start with 4 instead of 6. So we should alter the sequence, start with 4. But start with clause cannot be modified. We cannot alter the start with clause. So the only option, there are 2 options now. Drop the sequence, recreate the sequence with min value as 4 or min value as 1 and start with value will be as 4. That is option number 1. Second option, alter the increment by value, make it as decrementing, generate the values up to its previous value, that is minus 1. It will start max value as 6 or something like that. Generate the values up to 3. Again alter the sequence with increment by as plus 1. So when you generate the next value, 3 plus 1 will be 4. These are the two options available. Again we roll back. After 6, 7, there is no commit. If you see 1, 2, 3 is there. Now we want to alter the sequence because it is generating 6. If you insert again, now it will generate from 8. So we want to start with 4. Start with cannot be altered. So next option is drop the sequence, create the sequence, min value 1, no cycle, no cache, increment by 1, max value we did not specify. Now we specify start with 4. So only for the first time start with clause will be considered. So for the first time it will start with 4. For the subsequent iterations it will start with min value only. And anyway there is no cycle. So no subsequent cycles, no iterations. So it will start with 4 now. Insert into this one. It will start with 4, 5. See, if you see 4 and 5 will be there. This is option number 1. Dropping the sequence, recreating the sequence with all the existing parameters and start with clause with the value where we wanted to start. But remember one thing, when we drop the sequence, the grants whatever we had given on this sequence, all those grants will be lost. See, at some point of time we had given select privilege to U1. If it is on this sequence S_TT1, that grant will be missing. That grant will be lost now because of drop. So we need to re-grant that particular privileges. Before dropping the sequence, collect all the grants whichever we made to other users, store them somewhere. After recreating the sequence, re-grant them all those grants. We have to be very careful in the production environment when we drop the sequences for reset option. The grants to be collected and re-granted again. Now we roll back. Again 4, 5 lost. We have 3 records. If we insert, this will be 6 and 7. We roll back. So now we need to start the sequence with 4. If you continue again, it will start with 8 now because 6 and 7 is also generated. So now the another option, we are not going to drop the sequence. We don't drop it because we do not want to mess up with the grants or any other dependencies are there. So we will alter the sequence. Instead of adding the start with and start with cannot be modified, we alter the increment by -1. Now Nextval, because it has generated up to 6, it will not start with max value because it is already started. So now it will start with the current value. Current value Currval is 7. So it will start decrementing from there. Since it is -1 it will be decremented. That is 7 -1, 6 -1, 5 -1, 4 -1, 3. So if you generate the next value, it will be 2. And if you change the increment to +1, after that the next value will be 3. 3 is already present. We don't want 3. So we should stop at 3 itself. Now again we need to alter the sequence back to +1. So the current value which is generated by the sequence is 3. After this, when we generate the next value, it will add +1 which will be 4. So when we insert, 4 and 5 will be inserted. This is the second option. It will be little time consuming and a little bit of calculation is required here, but this will be the best option to alter the sequence. Means to alter the sequence with the starting position, start with value. Start with value cannot be altered, and it is not advisable to drop the sequence and add the start with. It is always advisable to change the increment by to negative value and then generate the values to which we want to stop and change it back to +1 and then regenerate the values where it has to be started. This will be the best option for altering the sequences, especially when we performed rollback in our transactions. This is to avoid the missing values or to avoid finding gaps in between the primary key ID values. Nothing wrong in having gaps between the primary key ID values. We just need some number over there. It should be unique, it cannot be duplicated, and there should not be any null in that. Some primary key ID value is required. So nothing harm in having gaps in the primary key column values normally in the production environment. But there will be some exceptional cases, especially in financial organizations like banks and insurances. They do not prefer any gaps in between. And some other production environments also, we do not want any gaps in that. In that case, this is the alternate solution to alter the sequence. Otherwise, I don't mind if there is any gap in my production data. In that case, we need not alter the sequence. We can go ahead, continuously use. If you perform the rollback, nothing wrong in that. That gap will be there. Okay, it will start with some other value. There will be a gap. It doesn't bother. It doesn't make any difference in my business. As long as value is there in that, there is no problem for me. So this is how we alter the sequence. Next, let us see the problem with sequences and cache, especially in RAC environment, RAC, Real Application Cluster, and especially RAC environment with multi-node, RAC with multi-node environment. Normal database without RAC, we do not have any problem with cache. RAC database with single node, still we do not have any problem with the cache. But RAC database with multi-node, 2 nodes or above, 4 nodes, 8 nodes, 6 nodes like this, then there will be a problem here. But continuously you don't see any problem, but in case of any failures you can see some differences here. That difference will be